Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to be talking about UFC 280, Charles do Bronx Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev for the vacant UFC lightweight belt, and it's going down this Saturday afternoon live in Abu Dhabi at the Etihad Arena. And I said afternoon, just so y'all know, 10 a.m. Eastern, first fight. You got the main card at 2 p.m., and I also said vacant belt. Pretty crazy, right? Because Charles do Bronx Oliveira, according to us right now, before the fact, he is the undisputed UFC lightweight champion. But the stuff that went down that last fight, I believe in Arizona against Justin Gaethje, some say that they should have just given him that half-pound allowance. Some say he didn't really miss weight. And who knows what the deal is. But all that we know is that, hey, at least he's got a chance to become a two-time world champion here if he's able to defeat the very tough, I'd say the guy that's paid his dues in Islam Makhachev, just the protege of Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, this guy, Islam Makhachev, has been an absolute wrecking ball. So I'm just so excited to get down to business, to break down this main event, the entire card. This should be one of the best fight cards of 2022. So let's get down to business, y'all. So do me a favor, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and let's do this thing. Because in the main event for the undisputed UFC lightweight belt, we got the former champ, quote unquote, Charles do Bronx Oliveira, the number one contender. He's 33-8, representing Brazil, taking on Islam Makhachev, the number two contender, who's 22-1, representing Russia. And currently, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, they got it minus 180. Islam Makhachev, the comeback on Charles do Bronx Oliveira, is plus 155. So where do we begin, man? I mean, this is just one of the best lightweight title fights we've ever had in the history of the sport. It almost feels like, you guys remember how badly a few years back we wanted to see Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. It feels like this is the modern day version of Khabib versus Ferguson, and we're actually going to get it. And I know right now it's Monday, so I don't want to jinx anything, but as of right now, it looks like it's going to happen. And man, I could not be more excited. And I don't think I've been more pumped for a lightweight title fight in years. And I mean, I say that, granted, how could you have not been pumped for Charles versus Justin, Charles versus Dustin, Charles versus Chandler, all amazing fights. I feel like the lightweight belt, I mean, just the lightweight division in general, I personally still think it's the best division in the entire sport. I know a lot of people got love for bantamweight, and rightfully so. Bantamweight is one of the emerging divisions. We're going to talk about Sterling versus Dillashaw. We're going to talk about Petr versus Sean O'Malley. I got some love for featherweight. I got love for welterweight. But man, I still think 155 is the best. And I can go on a tangent about why I feel that way. I mean, you look at some of the guys that are ranked like towards the end of the top 15. I mean, the Rafael Fizieves, the Damir Ismagulovs, the Arman Sarukians, the Gamrots, this and that. But we can talk about that another time. Let's break down this main event between Charles and Islam. So just an amazing fight. I mean, you got the guy in Charles Oliveira who has the most submission wins in UFC history, probably going to end up having the most finishes in UFC history. Probably has the most finishes in lightweight history as it is. There's just a lot of talking points because it seems like the guy's definitely turned a corner in his career. And I'd love to pinpoint exactly what I think the corner he turned is specifically, because there used to be a thing about Charles Oliveira. What happens if he's presented with adversity in a fight, right? Like, can he overcome adversity? What's been different in this win streak compared to in the past when guys were able to get to him? I think I have some of those answers. We're going to find out Saturday night if I'm right or wrong about that, but I have potential theories about why certain things have been going, how they've been going. So I'm excited to dive into that. And then also with Islam Makhachev, the win streak he's on. And guys, don't even try me on no bullshit like, oh, he beat Bobby Green and Dan Hooker and now he's getting a title shot. Yeah, let's like completely ignore that this dude 30-27 Arman Sarukian, which one doesn't simply do. Let's just completely ignore how dominant he's been on this win streak. Like, let's don't even try me on that bullshit. This guy 100% deserves this title shot against Charles Oliveira. But let's start with Charles. So what's been different in this win streak for Charles Oliveira compared to the past Charles Oliveira? I think that's a pretty good place to start. So Charles Oliveira's always had the amazing submission ability. I mean, he's been a black belt in jiu-jitsu this whole time, so that hasn't changed. I mean, like, even prior to this win streak, we saw this guy getting triangle chokes, Peruvian neckties, calf slicers, the whole bit, Darce chokes, guillotines, everything, rear naked chokes. I mean, arm bars. I mean, I can go on forever. So, like, it's not like his jiu-jitsu suddenly gotten better on this win streak. What I think has gotten better, there have been some mental changes. His confidence is just absolutely through the roof now. His confidence is on another level. I mean, you can see the kind of swagger. Just, you feel this guy's aura and his presence when he walks in the room. And if you're not in the room with him, you see it on the internet and all the videos. I mean, the guy is just, when he walks in, everybody notices that this guy walked in. He's got that thing about him. I mean, the guy's fucking walking around with a lion on a leash, to put it lightly. So the confidence is obviously through the roof, but the submission ability has always been there. What I think has changed is the approach with the striking. He's always had tool striking. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the guy's always been a shoot-to-box striker. He's always had the big kicks, the knees, the elbows, this and that. But he fights at a different pace now. If y'all saw that fight a couple of weeks back between Daniel Santos and John Castaneda, shout out to Daniel Santos for that plus 175. But I'm not saying that to impress you, but to impress upon you that style is exactly what Charles do Bronx has been implementing. He goes right after you, kill or be killed. And I mean, his pace is just relentless. He gets in these guys' faces and just pressures them to a point where they're like overwhelmed. They don't get a second to breathe. And we're talking about high-level strikers. We're talking about guys with some of the most knockouts and knockdowns in the history of the lightweight division, like Dustin Poirier. When you're getting in a guy like Dustin Poirier's face and you're making him be like, holy shit, like, give me a breather, that has to speak volumes, not just to the improved technique of Charles Oliveira, but again, back to the confidence that we've been talking about. I mean, this guy's confidence is truly unshakable. And I know that we're going to talk about, why has he overcome adversity, this and that, because there have been some knockdowns that he's overcome. But I'm going to get to that in a sec. First, I just want to point out in that Dustin Poirier fight, because, yeah, a lot of people just remember the submission, but what they don't talk about is how he was systematically breaking down Poirier with those knees, those tie clinch knees to the body, sucking the wind out of him. Was absolutely beautiful to see. And I'm a huge Poirier fan, but just saying, as a lover of martial arts, I mean, how could you not respect the technique that was displayed there against Justin Gaethje? Justin Gaethje is known for being the guy that wants to drag you to hell and wants to be like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to take you with me. And Charles do Bronx, he was like, oh yeah, no problem. I'll meet you right there. I'll meet you in the depths of hell. And Justin Gaethje, I've never seen him wilt in a fight. I've seen Justin Gaethje get caught before, but I've never seen Justin Gaethje break. And Charles Oliveira broke Justin Gaethje. That was truly something serious. In the Tony Ferguson fight, look, I know Tony Ferguson is at this point a washed-up fighter, but I mean, at that point, who had ever dominated Tony Ferguson like that? I know he ate some big shots against Justin Gaethje, but to pick Tony Ferguson up with that body lock takedown, drag him, walk him across the octagon, Matt Hughes style, slam him down. I'm surprised he didn't tap to that armbar. I mean, it was just a dismantling against Michael Chandler, who that first round is Michael Chandler's best round in any of his fights. Michael Chandler's hell on wheels in that first round. Michael Chandler's made a long career of knocking people out in that first round. Michael Chandler landed his best shots on do Bronx, and guess what? When it was do Bronx's turn to land his shots, Michael Chandler couldn't get back up. So this version of do Bronx is, I'd say, the finished product. This is the best possible version. This is him in his prime. I don't think we're going to see him get any better. But with me saying that, I don't want people to take that as, oh, that just automatically means he's going to lose now. No, what I mean is this is the finished product. This is the 10 stars out of 10. This is, because when he first came into the UFC, we saw that fight with Darren Elkins. We saw that fight with Efrain Escudero. We always knew he had potential. We always knew he had talent. Like even in some of his losses, like the Paul Felder one, it's not like he just got ran over. I mean, he ran Paul Felder through the series. We still got to see the insane talent of Charles Oliveira before certain things happen, which I'm going to get to the adversity talk here in a second. But I just want to point to the fact that Charles Oliveira has always been a supremely talented fighter. It's just now the mental has truly caught up with the physical. But now let's talk about the adversity talk, because I 100% agree that he's turned a corner mentally, and I think his confidence is absolutely through the roof. But I do have to say a couple things. So why did the Felder fight go down the way it did? And how is the Felder fight different from the fights that have happened on his current win streak? So someone said you're implying Charles is on PEDs. No, actually, that thought didn't even cross my mind. But that's pretty funny, though. He's passed his drug test. So as far as I'm concerned, this guy is just the best version of himself. But what I want to say here about this Paul Felder fight. So why is that different than a lot of these other fights he's had on this current win streak? And how is the adversity in that fight? How does that differentiate from him getting knocked down by David Tamor and coming back to win the fight, getting knocked down by Dustin, getting knocked down by Justin, getting hurt by Michael Chandler, coming back to win all those fights? Here's why I think the scenarios are different. When he fought Felder, he literally ran Felder through the series. I'm talking the guillotine, to the Dars, to the anaconda, take his back, attempt a rear naked choke, like literally drag him through everything to a point where it's like, man, like, what do I got to do to get this guy out of there? And going for all those submission attempts is going to tire you out. And by that point, it was like, fuck, and that kind of mentally broke him. And from there, Felder was able to get off on some big ground and pound. I think one of the fundamental differences here is the kind of adversity he's been going through in this current win streak, getting dropped by Tamor. What do Tamor, Dustin, Justin all have in common? They all dropped Charles Oliveira. But what's the fundamental difference here between them and what someone like Islam might do if he gets in, similar spots? I think the fundamental difference is this. Dustin Poirier, David Tamor, and Justin Gaethje all dropped Charles Oliveira, but they all respect his guard so much that they backed away. They gave him ample time to recover. And from there, Charles is right back in the fight. Whereas I think the difference here is, and I'm not saying that Islam's going to get a knockdown, but let's say Islam does get a knockdown. The reason I'm saying that is Charles has been dropped his last few fights. It's been a consistent theme. But the other consistent theme is these guys respect his guard and just his jiu-jitsu so damn much, they don't want to engage with him. And rightfully so. Why would you want to engage on the mat with Charles do Bronx Oliveira, the man with the most submissions in UFC history? I think that Islam has the grappling pedigree to where if he gets Charles hurt, I don't think that he's going to be intimidated to go into the guard of Charles Oliveira. Now, that could very well be his undoing. I mean, if Charles Oliveira triangles someone or arm bars them, guillotine, whatever the case may be, like, it's not going to surprise anyone. I just think the difference is that Islam's not the kind of guy that's going to let you off the hook. And oftentimes, Dustin Poirier is not the kind of guy that's going to let you off the hook, but we're talking when a fight's standing. But when a fight's on the mat with Oliveira and you drop him, I mean, these guys are like, hey, get back up, man. I don't want no part of that. I don't want no part of that Charles Oliveira guard. And I just don't think that Islam is the kind of guy that's going to be like, I don't want no part of that guard. I think if Islam has you hurt, he's going to be like, oh, I'm going to come into this guy's guard. I'm going to neutralize him. And from there, I'm going to hurt him. And we've seen when Oliveira is hurt, I mean, Felder, when he smelled the blood, he went for it. Like, I don't think that Oliveira is just a brand new man. Do I think his confidence is through the roof? 100%. Do I think that technique, it's the best it's ever been throughout his career? Yes. This is the best version of him. I just think that, again, when people talk about him overcoming adversity in these few fights, you have to put context into it. You have to mention the fact that when David Tamor dropped him, David Tamor didn't want to follow this guy to the ground. David Tamor wanted him back up. Dustin Poirier wanted him back up. Justin Gaethje wanted him back up. These guys want no part of the ground with Charles Oliveira, and rightfully so. Islam is going to want to be on the mat with Charles Oliveira, and that's what makes it interesting, right? It can do Bronx be the first man to submit him? Possibly, but from what I've seen from Islam is, I mean, that Dagestani wrestling, and it's not just wrestling, it's grappling, because I mean, this guy's out here submitting black belts too. I think that he might have the skills to neutralize a guy like Charles Oliveira, weather these storms, go through the submission attempt series, and come out on top. And, you know, I know a lot of people will reference this sequence in the Thiago Moises fight where Islam Makhachev, you know, later on in the fight, he got taken down one time and Moises almost had his back, and then Moises gave a position, and you know that's like the one thing you can clasp onto, right? To make some kind of argument. Well, if Dubronx was in that position, he would have got his hooks in. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, he got his hooks in against Michael Chandler, and Michael Chandler, also a credentialed wrestler, was able to reverse position and get on top. Now, someone asked a very good question. Do you think he fakes being dropped to bait them? That's a fantastic question, because Fabricio Vaicavalo Werdum used to do a similar thing. And I think at times Charles Oliveira is so confident and he's so smart at this point that, you know, he will take all the time he needs to recover. But I mean, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje definitely dropped him. Those were 100% knockdowns, and the Tamor fight was definitely a knockdown too. I think the Michael Chandler hurting him was maybe a little bit overblown, but I think the other examples I mentioned, they 100% dropped him. So we saw when he took Chandler's back, Chandler was able to survive that, get on top. But we also know that Chandler is one of these guys that just balls to the wall in that first round, isn't exactly known for getting better as fights progress. I've never seen conditioning to be an issue with Islam Makhachev. The one fight that Islam Makhachev lost against Adriano Martins, I mean, firstly, if you look at Islam's body in that fight compared to it now, I mean, he looked like a skinny little kid, whereas now he looks like a grown-ass man. He just made an immature mistake, rushed this guy recklessly, and at the time, Adriano Martins had a nasty counter right hook. I mean, Adriano Martins was in some high-profile fights at the time. I mean, he got that big fight with Cowboy Cerrone. I know now Cowboy's retired, but at the time, Cowboy Cerrone was one of the stars of the division. And I mean, listen, no one's exempt to that first L as far as I'm concerned. And happy birthday to Charles Dubronx Oliveira. Today's his birthday. It's a Libra gang. My birthday was last week, so, you know, I got love for my Libras. But as far as the betting odds are concerned, so I actually bet Islam Makhachev in this spot, and I bet him at minus 162. Now, I know it's scary fading or betting against, having money against this version of Charles Oliveira, and I'm not going to lie, it is very scary. But this is literally the first time actually, it's the first time in a long time. It's the first time since 2016 that we've gotten a minus one something on Islam Makhachev. The only other times were against Adriano Martins. That was a pick 'em with a slight lean on Makhachev. And the Chris Wade fight, it was the same thing, a pick 'em with a slight lean on Makhachev, and Makhachev absolutely dominated Chris Wade. But aside from that, you're having to pay up minus 300, minus 400, minus 5. I mean, like, just to give you an example, because Islam Makhachev had a couple fights that fell through. Like, he was scheduled to fight Beneil Dariush, who's, you know, a top 5 guy. Islam was like minus 375 against Beneil Dariush. Islam had a fight scheduled, or a potential fight, with Justin Gaethje. He was minus 600. He's minus 400 against Alex Volkanovski. So just speaking in terms of the market, I think we actually are getting a discount on Islam Makhachev at these odds. Now, of course, you cannot count out Oliveira. That's why I'm not going crazy. You know, I'm not saying this is a max bet. I'm not disrespecting Charles Oliveira. I think I spent like 15 minutes only talking about Charles Oliveira. That's the kind of regard I hold him in. But just talking numbers, I think that this is the first time in 10 fights that we've gotten a minus one something on Islam Makhachev. Not to mention, I bet at minus 162. Now it's minus 180. I've already beat the line. Well, so far it's Monday. We'll see where it closes. I believe I will be beating the closing line. So basically, this is what I kind of think. One thing I like about Islam's stand-up is this. Everyone's so concerned about his wrestling that they kind of keep their hands down because they want to be ready to get those underhooks, to sprawl, to stuff. that Islam comes out here. He throws a lot of high kicks, and that catches people off guard. I love it when good wrestlers come out with high kicks. And I mean, look, his volume might not be anywhere near Charles Oliveira's. That's for sure. Charles Oliveira comes out there like a berserker, but I feel like Islam Makhachev makes his shots count. And also, when you have, how many fights has Islam Makhachev had in the UFC? Let me count real quick. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have a 12 fight sample size, and this guy absorbs literally less than 1 strike per minute. That's pretty fucking impressive. That speaks volumes. That's an insane number right there. So how they match up, I mean, I don't think that Charles is going to be hard to find. I don't think that Charles is going to be scared of Islam. I don't think that Charles is going to be avoiding Islam. I think Charles is going to go right after Islam. Flying kicks, flying knees, straight punches, set up those hooks, and try to get him out of there. And as a result of doing that, I think he's going to leave himself open to being taken down. Now, from there, it gets interesting. Will the guillotines be in play? Off his back, the triangles, the arm bars? Possibly. I mean, you can't sleep on Dubronx, but I think that, I've seen guys like Michael Chandler get out of the back escapes, get out of the back takes. I've seen Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's been submitted a bunch of times, but early on, Kevin Lee, not known for the best gas tank, but Kevin Lee was able to reverse position a couple times. I think a guy like Makhachev, who has proven that he can go the full distance, I think that he'll be fine. And as long as he's not, as long as he's not getting finished here, man, I think that he's going to be able to, at some point in this fight, there's going to be a turning point where he's able to neutralize Charles Oliveira and start to impose his will. And at that point, I think that that's where things change. And I think that that's where the big question comes in on, has Charles truly turned the corner in terms of this overcoming adversity talk? Because back to what I said with those knockdowns from Tamor, Dustin, and Justin, they all gave him a chance to recover. They all, they dropped him. Charles was on his back chilling, taking his time to recover. They wanted no part in any kind of follow-up. Islam's not that kind of guy. If Islam senses you're tired, he's going to turn up. And that's what I think makes this fight so intriguing. So I cannot wait. I bet on Islam to win 2 units at -162. Listen, if it's just simply Dubronx's time, then you guys know I ain't one of these guys who fucking writes paragraphs when I lose a bet and starts blaming it on the judges, blaming it on variance and this, that, which I know variance is a real thing, of course, but you just take your L like a man and give props to the other guy. It is what it is. So if this is Charles' time, then I fully accept it. And win or lose, I'm a huge fan of Charles, but this ain't about being a fan of someone. I just really like the number I got on Islam Makhachev. When's the last time you got a -1 something on Islam Makhachev? And not to mention, I think he's got the grappling goods to come out here, survive these submission attempts, neutralize them. I think the takedowns will be there too. Charles has been taken down a multitude of times. He doesn't care about being taken down because he's so goddamn confident in his unbelievable Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and rightfully so. It's just that now, I mean, who in his current run is a relentless Dagestani wrestler? None of these guys, man. And none of these guys had the confidence or the balls to go into Charles' guard. This guy does. And that's where things are going to get interesting. There will be some sweats along the way for sure. But I think the longer the fight goes, the more it favors Islam. And I think he's going to come out here the new UFC lightweight champion. So I'm taking Islam Makhachev to get the win in Abu Dhabi. But let me tell you something. If Charles Oliveira goes out there, becomes a 2-time lightweight champion, and beats Islam Makhachev in Abu Dhabi, holy shit. Then we can start talking about, putting him in there with the BJ Penns and the Habibs in terms of all-time greatness, because that would truly be like, wow, like, oh my God. But again, for people, posting clips of, Thiago Moises took him down for a second and then gave a position, for that one clip you can show me, I can show you 6 clips of Charles getting submitted. So to me, it's like, what? Islam got taken down one time in an MMA fight and then still ended up on top 2 seconds later. Like, guys, I don't think that's sufficient evidence to just say that Charles is just going to come out here and submit him. Maybe he does anyways, right? You never know. I mean, he is just that good. But I think that Islam is the guy. So let's see. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is. So let's see what happens here. Much respect to both guys. Huge fan. My money's on Islam in this one. Now, I think I covered everything for that main event, but if I remember something, I'll come back to it. But co-main event of the evening for the undisputed bantamweight belt, we got the champion Aljamain Sterling. He's 21-3, taking on TJ Dillashaw, the former two-time bantamweight champion, who's 17-4, both representing the United States of America. And currently in DraftKings Sportsbook, they got it Aljamain Sterling -175, the comeback on TJ Dillashaw's +150. Very, very interesting fight. And I know that a lot of people are expecting me to come out here and shit on Aljamain Sterling and this and that. But, at the end of the day, it's, I like having fun on Twitter, talking a little bit of shit, but make no mistake about it. I do respect Sterling. I mean, as a jiu-jitsu guy myself, I'm just a purple belt. I mean, I think he's a black belt. How can you not respect some of the techniques this guy does? If you can backpack Petr Yan for 2 straight rounds, not even just that. Like, look at that fight with Cody Stamann, just the dominance. And Cody Stamann is like a college wrestler. The dominance that Sterling shows on the mat, sometimes it's like something special. I think he's truly is that good. My issues with Sterling have kind of been, obviously, I didn't like how he won the belt, but my issues with him came way long before that. Back when he fought Brian Caraway, one of my favorite underdog hits was I bet Brian Caraway at +350. And the way that fight went down was the first round, Aljamain Sterling backpacked him. But then after that, he kind of fatigued and he broke in the second and third rounds. And not that that's been a consistent theme throughout his career, because look where he's gone. He's holding a fucking belt, right? And he's beating guys like Petr Yan. I mean, that speaks for itself that he's come a long way, baby. But I think that certain things that we saw in the past can still come out in these fights, even in these last 2 Petr fights. Like, you look at that first Petr fight, and I mean, I thought that Aljamain was getting tossed. But let's talk about the second one, the one that he won on the judges' scorecards. Now, I don't want to sit here and sound bitter because I did score it for Petr. I had first round Petr, I had second and third clearly Aljamain, and I had fourth and fifth Petr. That means that 48-47 Petr Yan. But regardless of who I scored it for doesn't matter. It's who the judges scored it for. And if you want to talk about value at the betting odds, I mean, those that bet Aljamain, hey, if it's a split decision, you got like a +350 dog. Y'all did your job. So congratulations to you guys. I can admit that was a bad bet, not only a bad bet on Petr at those odds, but that the fight was way closer than I expected it to be. Like, regardless of who I scored it for, that fight played out way closer. I thought it was going to just be a domination. I thought you were just going to, put the icing on the cake, add insult to injury, and run this guy over. And that's not what happened at all. Aljamain Sterling, man. The thing about it is, like, I've never thought that Aljamain Sterling was like the toughest guy. I've always felt like, as the fights get deeper, that he starts to slow down. And part of it may be because, like, you look at that Pedro Munoz fight, he fights at an insane pace, man. He's just spamming shots after shots after shots. Like, he might not have knockout power, but man, he can just throw volume, and he wasn't throwing the volume against Petr Yan, rightfully so. I mean, Petr Yan, I think he might have the most knockdowns in the bantamweight division, one of the heaviest hitters. But here against TJ Dillashaw, I think it might look a little bit different. I think that he might have a bit more confidence to let his limbs go in terms of the striking, as far as the striking is concerned. And then another area that's interesting is that TJ Dillashaw, former D1 wrestler, has he been taken down in the UFC? Yes, but has he truly been controlled? No. So that kind of makes it interesting. But another factor you got to bring in is that one of the biggest weapons TJ Dillashaw has is his kicks. And kicking a lot against a guy like Aljamain, who's just really damn good at snatching up that single leg, turning it into a body lock, turning that into a back take. Like, you might get off on 10 kicks, but maybe on that 11th, that's where Aljamain catches it, finds a way to take your back. And the thing about Aljamain that actually makes him special is his back control, man. I mean, when this guy takes your back, like, dudes often just don't get out. Dudes are stuck there. Dudes look helpless there. And we're not just talking about, some bottom of the barrel guys. I mean, if Petr Yan can't escape your back control, like, that has to speak volumes, because I hold Petr Yan in super high regard. So you just have to show Aljamain a lot of respect for what he's good at, and he knows what he's good at. The thing is, I truly believe that if you can get Aljamain tired, if you do not get finished, you don't take a bunch of compromising damage from those positions, I do think that as fights progress, he does start to wilt a little bit. I don't think that Aljamain likes getting hit. Not that anybody likes getting hit. I'm just saying, you hit Petr Yan with a baseball bat and he'll smile at you, whereas, Aljamain Sterling, he might start shooting from a mile out. It might start looking kind of bad. He might start flopping around. So that's what makes this intriguing, because if you gave me the prime version of TJ Dillashaw, I actually think it might be a clinic. It's just that this is not the prime version of Dillashaw. Dillashaw going into the Sandhagen fight was coming off a brutal knockout to Henry Cejudo, where he attempted to kill himself to make flyweight, tested positive for EPO, goes into that Sandhagen fight and tears his ACL, I believe, in the fight. Now he's coming off another year layoff. Now he's 37 years old, and you guys know 37 at heavyweight is one thing, but 37 at bantamweight, that's pretty damn old. So I think we can say that TJ Dillashaw is no longer in his prime. But TJ Dillashaw, if he can come here and just perform like he used to perform, I think he's live. But I do have to favor Aljamain Sterling here with the youth and just him starting to feel more comfortable inside the octagon and knowing exactly where his strengths lie. Like, I know that he, wanted no part of letting his hands go against Petr Yan that last time out, and I don't blame him, but I think it might be a little bit different here. I think that he might feel a little bit more confident getting off on a bit of that volume and kind of luring TJ into not necessarily a slugfest, but get TJ to feel confident throwing those kicks where you can potentially catch them. And it's going to be tough to take down a D1 wrestler like TJ. I definitely think so. It's just that you might miss the first 10, but if you can get that 11th and you can get his back one time, man, if TJ can reverse position, holy shit. But from what I've seen from Sterling, when guys get stuck in that position, they simply just aren't able to reverse. They aren't able to get out. He's just so damn good at backpacking people. So that makes this really an interesting fight. If this was like 5 years ago, I'd be betting TJ at these odds. And honestly, I don't blame people for taking the gamble here on TJ either. If they feel like, hey, like if you can just tap into your former stuff. Because like in that Sandhagen fight, so live, I thought that Sandhagen won the fight, but on the rewatch, it was a bit closer than I remembered, man. Like TJ is a gamer. Like he hit a clean flying knee. He got caught in an inverted triangle, which is interesting too, because the Funk Master has a lot of unorthodox submissions. I mean, you saw that what's it, the something stretch. I forgot. I keep forgetting the first word of the stretch. That knee bar from the back that he hit on Cody Stamann. Like, someone tell me what the fuck it's called. It starts with an S. The something stretch. I always fuck that up. But yeah, when he hit that, that knee bar on a guy like Cody Stamann, it was just absolutely ridiculous. And this guy can do some funky, unorthodox stuff. So yeah, I'm really not too sure on this one. Just because TJ, 37 at bantamweight, coming off the ACL, and Aljamain knows where his strengths lie. So I'm gonna lean Aljamain to make it happen, to steal some of these rounds, but not confident. I don't have a bet on this fight for a reason. I don't feel like I have the best read on this fight either, because a few years ago I actually would have been confident on TJ Dillashaw at these odds, but I don't know if I can trust him anymore at his current state. Yeah, so I'm not too sure about this one, but I'll pick Aljamain to defend his belt. But I think that regardless of who, yeah, there it is. Thank you, buddy. The Suleiman stretch, that one. I think that's what it's called, right? Something like that. Yeah, tough fight for me to call here between Aljamain and TJ, and I'm not gonna bullshit y'all and act like I know what's gonna happen. Even the fights that I'm confident in, I might be wrong on, right? But this one's just one of my, this one and like the Gamrot Dariush fight are the toughest ones for me to call. So, but yeah, I'm gonna pick Aljamain to win this fight. Let's see what happens. But what I wanted to say was, regardless of who wins this fight, both these gentlemen will be faded soon. I don't think that either is going to be a long reigning champion. But if TJ wins, holy shit, he'll become a 3-time bantamweight champ. That's history right there. Featured bout in the bantamweight division, we got the former champion Petr Yan. He's 16-3, taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley, who is 15-1. And currently they got it currently they got it Petr Yan minus 280. The comeback on Chookagian is plus 235. So I've heard a lot of chatter about, Petr likes to kind of ease into fights, take these first rounds off, and if he does that and then he wins the third round, it could be up in the air in the second round, and then maybe Sean could squeak one out. But I think that I'm not entirely sure I buy that line of thinking for this fight specifically, and I'll tell you why. So in that last fight that O'Malley had with Pedro Munoz, I actually put 5 units on Sean O'Malley against Pedro, and I truly think that he was going to win that fight. But the reason that it wasn't as exciting in that first round, and actually 2 judges scored the first round for Pedro of all people, and Pedro landed 0 head strikes, which was kind of interesting, was just because Pedro was too hesitant to enter the range of Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley wasn't going to force anything. He was going to wait for Pedro to enter the range. And from there, Pedro's known for eating a lot of head strikes, but Pedro came in with a good game plan, just leg kick him and do nothing else. And there's also that myth about O'Malley having weak legs. I mean, is it a myth or is it not a myth? I mean, the 2 times his legs have been compromised, the Chito Vera fight, I mean, I think Chito is one of the hardest kickers in the division, just as Dominic Cruz. And I also think the Sukumtut fight, what happened was, listen, Sukumtut might not win a lot of fights, but Sukumtut's got a concrete head. I mean, there's a reason that Sukumtut, like, I've never seen him get knocked out. Like, the dude loses a bunch of fights and he gets hurt all the time, but he never gets knocked out. And I think that O'Malley kicked him, and I think O'Malley's leg hurt from kicking Sukumtut in the head, So, and it was 2 different situations. The Chito fight was Chito kicking O'Malley in just the perfect nerve, and the Sukumtut fight was O'Malley head kicking Sukumtut and just hurting his leg or his foot on the hard ass head of Andre Sukumtut. So people say that he's fragile, but I mean, Pedro Munoz is one of the hardest calf kickers in the bantamweight division, and Pedro Munoz didn't seem to have O'Malley compromised whatsoever. So I think people need to kind of, pump the brakes as far as, O'Malley's fragility. The thing here is that this guy, Petr Yan, he can give it. He's not going to be hesitant. Does he make his reads early? Yes, he does, but he's not going to be afraid of Sean O'Malley. And I'm not sitting here saying that Pedro was. I just think that Pedro's kind of getting up there in age, and maybe Pedro's kind of unwilling to get into the wars that he was once, willing to get into. Pedro used to just go life and death with everybody. I think now he's getting up there, 36 years old. I think he's kind of thinking about the next part of his career, whereas I still think Petr Yan has title aspirations. So I think Petr Yan is going to get right in the face of Sean O'Malley. He's going to make Sean O'Malley fight. And here's one thing I know about O'Malley. O'Malley can give it. 100% O'Malley can give it. But the big question is, can O'Malley take it too? I'm not saying he can't. That's just my question. Whereas with Petr Yan, I know Petr Yan can give it, and I know Petr Yan can take it. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking here is it's going to be fun, and they're both going to be giving each other big shots. And listen, you catch someone on the sweet spot, it doesn't matter how tough you are, you could go out. So maybe this is the first time Petr gets knocked out. It's just that if this is just, a battle of wills and, a battle of attrition and who wants it more and who's willing to dig deeper, based on what I've seen, I think Petr Yan is that guy. So I don't really foresee Petr Yan taking any rounds off, maybe starting a little bit slow to make his reads like he did in the Sandhagen fight, but he still clearly won the second and third round, and this is a 3-round fight. So had that Sandhagen fight been a 3-round fight, that would have been a clear 29-28 for Petr Yan. I don't even think he looked that bad in that first round. Just, how to make his reads against a long-rangey fighter. Here he's up against another long-rangey fighter. The thing is, Sandhagen's proven to be able to take it all the way back to that Yuri Alcantara fight. Y'all remember when Yuri Alcantara smashed Sandhagen's face? Y'all remember when John Lineker, who was one of the most notorious knockout artists in the bantamweight and flyweight division, was teeing off on Sandhagen? Sandhagen's chin held up. So we know Sandhagen can take it. Do we know that O'Malley can take it? Like, I know if it's a pretty fight and O'Malley's not getting hit, he can create a masterpiece out there. He can look like an artist. I know that. And if he's making Petr miss, then holy shit. I'm just not convinced he's going to make Petr miss. I think Petr is going to be able to get off on his shots, maybe mixing a takedown or two, but I'm not one of these guys that truly believes that the ground is this huge hole for O'Malley. I mean, the guy trains with fucking Tanquinho Mendes every day. I think that his jiu-jitsu is probably pretty decent. I don't think that he's just some white belt at all. So, but it comes back to the Floyd Mayweather quote. It's one thing to be able to give it, but can you take it too? I know O'Malley can give it, but can he take it too? I know Petr Yan can take it, but I also know Petr Yan. I know Petr Yan can give it, but I also know Petr Yan can take it too. So I think that's the fundamental difference between the two. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Petr Yan to win this fight. And I don't think that they rushed O'Malley at all. I think that, we're not dealing with the 23-year-old O'Malley, who just came to the UFC, the skinny O'Malley. I think he's getting up there. He's 28, entering his prime. I think that this is a good time, for him to have this fight in his career. So I'm really excited to see how it plays out. I think it'll be exciting at times, and I think O'Malley's going to get off on a lot of shots. It's just what's going to happen when it's Petr's turn to get off on his. And that's where my big question lies. And for that reason, I have to take Petr Yan to win this fight. Now, next up in the lightweight division, hey, everybody do me a huge favor. Smash that like button for me, please. But next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Beneil, Dariush. He's 21-4, taking on Mateusz Gamrot, who is 21-1. Currently, they got it. Mateusz Gamrot, minus 195. The comeback on Beneil Dariush is plus 165. Wow, this is such a goddamn good fight for a variety of reasons. So let's just get this out the way real quick. This fight stays standing, and I'll tell you a weapon that's going to be there for Beneil Dariush all day. Beneil Dariush has a nasty body kick. One thing that you saw Arman Tsarukyan get off on against Gamrot was that body kick, and Beneil does it from the southpaw stance, so it's going to be going right to that liver. And Beneil's got some really nice combinations, man. I mean, that someone says not pronounced Mateusz. What, Mateusz? Either way, you guys know who I'm talking about. But I love that Rafael Cordero, King's MMA striking that Beneil Dariush brings to the table. And, Beneil might not look like the most athletic guy, might have love handles, might have gray hair. Do not sleep on this guy. He is a killer, and he's been known for, pulling off a lot of upsets. I remember cashing that. I think it was it plus 160 against Rashid Magomedov back when Rashid was like 19-0 or 19-1. Like, he's gone out there and he surprised a lot of people along the way, man. So Benny on the feet, he's definitely going to be the more active guy, and those kicks are going to be there. The thing with Mateusz with Gamrot is that the volume isn't going to be there like with Benny, but when Gamrot lets things go, I think he's got a little sneaky power, and he's just really good about timing certain things, whether it's that jab, whether it's that straight right hand. But the best part about Gamrot's game is he's got a very unorthodox low single leg, and he seems to hit it on every single person he fights. I mean, if I just pull up the stats right now on Mateusz Gamrot, he's taken down every single person he's fought inside the octagon with that fucking low single. And it's not just your traditional low single like the one that Randy Couture hit on James Toney. Like, he'll like scoop it from down under, then lift it up over your head, and man, and he's relentless. Like, when's the last time you saw a guy go in there against Arman Tsarukyan and attempt 21 takedowns? Like not only does that speak volumes to the effort of Gamrot, but it speaks volumes to the balls. I mean, what balls to shoot on a guy like Arman Tsarukyan that many times? Like, I know Islam was able to land some takedowns, but Mateusz was out here fucking attempting 21 takedowns. He gave no fucks about the grappling of Arman Tsarukyan, regardless of who you score that fight for. What makes this one interesting is this. Beneil Dariush, you guys know, and I was talking about his striking, how that body kick's going to be there, how he's also got some sneaky power, same like Gamrot, but don't sleep on Beneil Dariush's black belt. I mean, this guy's been a black belt for a very long time, and he was known for not just in his MMA days, but in his jiu-jitsu days. He was one of these sneaky guys that came up the ranks and surprised a lot of people. But here's the thing. It's the wrestling I'm worried about. It's not that Beneil can't wrestle. Beneil can 100% wrestle. Beneil's taking a lot of people down. It's just that once we get past that initial stage and once we're kind of fatigued a little bit, can Beneil still shuck off these takedowns? Will Beneil be kind of content to play in the guard where Gamrot can kind of accrue a little bit of top control? Not necessarily get off on some ground and pound. I think that Beneil is definitely very defensively sound on the mat. It's just the longer this becomes a grind, that's where I kind of fear for, like it sounds like I'm saying Beneil's out of shape, and that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just more so that the kind of pace, just wrestling wise, not striking wise, wrestling wise, that Gamrot puts on you and the kind of pressure. Like some of those reversals he hit on Chookagian is just something else. And with jiu-jitsu and wrestling, they're two different sports. You're more willing to kind of be complacent in jiu-jitsu a little bit if you can't get off on your positions, lay on your back a little bit. And those kind of things will let Gamrot win the rounds. But that being said, if Gamrot can't take him down or Gamrot can't knock him out, I think that Beneil is going to be getting off on the better combinations. And again, back to this point I've been making, I think that body kick is going to be there for Beneil Dariush. But the thing I got to point out is on this current win streak that Beneil's been on, none of these guys have really been attempting too many takedowns. Like no one's attempted more than 2 takedowns against him on this current run he's on. And like I just said, Gamrot attempted 21 takedowns against Chookagian. So that's a completely different look. And the last time that someone attempted more than 3 takedowns against Beneil Dariush was Evan Dunham, and he was actually able to get it to a draw. According to the judges, he won the second and third round. It's just that first round was a 10-8. I mean, Beneil almost killed him. Beneil gets carried away sometimes. I mean, don't let the nice personality fool you. Beneil is a killer, okay? So that's what makes this intriguing. And another thing I don't want to forget to mention is Beneil, didn't he recently like break his ankle? That's why he couldn't fight Islam Makhachev. Like, so is he still gonna, be looking fresh, like, or is he gonna kind of be flat out there? Like, I need to know how Beneil's gonna look. Because Gamrot's got momentum right now. Look, they both got momentum. They're both on win streaks. I'm just saying that Gamrot just performed recently against a young, hungry wrestler. Looked great in that fight, regardless of who you scored it for. I know that Gamrot can push a serious pace. I'm curious where Beneil's at with that broken ankle injury he just had. I heard it was pretty serious. And then I'm also curious what kind of success Gamrot's going to have with this unorthodox takedown game he has. That low single, you don't often see that in MMA. You see that a lot in college wrestling. You don't often see that in MMA, let alone successfully in MMA. So, yeah, interesting fight. I'm going to slightly lean towards Gamrot, though. But, I mean, I can't blame someone for taking a plus 165 on Dariush. If Gamrot doesn't get these takedowns, I think Beneil is going to be landing the better shots on the feet, man. And I think he's going to be hurting Gamrot with that body kick. It's just I'm curious what happens on the mat. And again, not to discredit Beneil's amazing jiu-jitsu, it's just more so I think that Mateusz is able to scramble with the best of them. And he's just a guy that never say die, right? Like is never willing to concede position, is always scrambling no matter what. Whereas I have seen Beneil, not always and rarely, but I have seen Beneil get out hustled at times. That's what I'm worried about here. So my pick is Gamrot, but no bet from me on this fight. So before I talk about Katlyn Chookagian versus Manon Fiorot and Belal Muhammad versus Sean Brady, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. So DraftKings Sportsbook, thank you so much for sponsoring today's episode of Half the Battle. So guys, UFC 280 is here. Get closer to the octagon with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. Right now, new customers can bet $5 on UFC 280 and get $200 in free bets if your fighter wins. If you haven't tried DraftKings Sportsbook, today is the day. Want even more action? You can also double your winnings on a same game parlay, meaning if you got Charles Oliveira and you want to parlay Charles Oliveira with Charles Oliveira by submission, you're allowed to do that here. Combine multiple bets like which fighter will win, how long the fight will last, and more. So, like I said, the Oliveira fight, if that's one you're interested in. If you like my boy Belal Muhammad, you want to bet Belal Muhammad plus Belal Muhammad by decision, you can parlay it. So, like, whatever combination you want to do it. They let you do that. It's pretty badass. So, everyone who wants to boost their winnings, place a UFC 280 same game parlay today. So, guys, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code Levy. That's my last name. You spell it just like Levi Jeans. Throw down $5 on UFC 280 and get $200 in free bets if your fighter wins. That's code Levy this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, guys. Again, big thank you to the DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure y'all take them up on that deal if you haven't already. And also, listen to my boy Any Action Effie right here saying, yo, we got 76 people in the house and only 26 of y'all have liked it. Come on, show me some love. Smash that like button. I truly appreciate it. Now, next up, kicking off the main card in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Katlyn Chookagian. She's 18-4, taking on France's Manon Fiorot, who is 9-1. And currently, they got it Manon Fiorot minus 215. The comeback on Katlyn Chookagian is plus 185. So, another interesting fight. The thing that I've always respected about Katlyn Chookagian is that she's just really damn good at winning these decisions. You know, even if she's not actually landing, you know, we used to make the jokes about her striking at the air and the tennis sounds and this and that. And I think they're valid things to bring up, but the judges eat that shit up. And as a result, she's been able to win so many decisions throughout her career. But I think another thing that needs to be pointed out is that, you know, sometimes, like, it's not just the air striking and the tennis sounds. Like, I've seen Katlyn Chookagian get mean in there. I mean, I know y'all saw that fight that Katlyn Chookagian had with the little Shevchenko with Antonina, and I mean, boy, did she put a whooping on her. So if you're not quite on Chookagian's level, she will put it on you, man. Oh, here we go. My boy corrected me. It's the Suliev stretch. This is correct. Suliev stretch. I knew that's what it was. So Suliev stretch. Thank you very much for correcting us, because I knew the other one sounded off. And no offense to the other guy. I know you tried. But yeah, Suliev stretch. That's what I was talking about with the Aljamain knee bar from the back. But anyways, back to Manon Fiorot and Katlyn Chookagian. You know, I love the fact that Katlyn Chookagian, like, she's really paid her dues, man. I mean, and like, if you're not quite ready for her level, she's definitely going to go out there and win that decision. She's landed over 100 significant strikes on multiple occasions, 127 significant strikes against Viviane Araújo, 105 against Irene Aldana. Like, that's some formidable competition. So, and also, you know, 2 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage. So she's got a lot going for her. But I like what I've seen from Manon Fiorot. Look, I get it. Has she fought the best level of competition? No, but I mean, like, every prospect was once a contender, and every contender was once a prospect, and every champion was once a contender, right? So, like, this is her step up in competition, and I do actually think that Manon Fiorot has some qualities to compete with Katlyn Chookagian. Look, I know she's a favorite, but I'm just saying, for all of us that have been watching Chookagian for so many years, and we're kind of viewing Manon Fiorot as kind of, you know, the new girl on the block, you know, what makes her different than these other ladies that haven't been able to get past the Chookagian test? And I think that something that does make her different is she's able to not only match the output, but surpass the output of Katlyn Chookagian and minimize the strikes that she absorbs as well. Her defense is 70%. Now, granted, we'll see where that number is after a fight like this. The takedown defense has been on point. You'd think, you know, from her part of the world, the French fighters mostly known for their striking. But I mean, I've seen this girl go out there and land takedowns in every single one of her UFC fights, even land knockdowns before. And when she has been taken down, she's been able to get back up. So I've been pretty damn impressed with this prospect. Now, do I think there's value at minus 215? Not really. I mean, and if you want to take Chookagian to find out if Manon Fiorot is ready for that level, that step up in competition, I don't blame you either. Because when I'm talking about is there value, like, do I really think that minus 215 is so off that she should be minus 300, minus 400, that I got to better there? No, it's just like I think she's slightly more promising than Katlyn Chookagian. I probably think she gets past this test, but these women's MMA fights, they can be close, and Chookagian has a way with those judges, man. So yeah, I mean, if you want to take the shot on her just to test out the prospect and see if she's ready, I get it. But my pick will be Manon Fiorot because I simply think she's got the goods to compete with someone. Like to beat Chookagian, certain things must be in place. You have to at least match or surpass the volume. And Manon Fiorot can do that. Not to mention her defense is on point. She's brimming with confidence. And I just don't see too many big holes in her game right now. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying she's going to beat Shevchenko or Nunes or anything like that, but I think that Chookagian is a formidable opponent and a fantastic test for where Manon Fiorot is at in her current career. And I think that this is a test that she's going to pass. So my official pick is going to be Manon Fiorot via decision. Now, here we go. This is one I am really, really excited to talk about. My second bet of the card. So next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Belal, remember the name Muhammad. He's 21-3, taking on the undefeated Sean Brady, who is 15-0. And currently, they got it. Sean Brady minus 145. The comeback on Belal Muhammad is plus 125. So, man, and I think that a lot of y'all that have been listening to me for a long time know that I've been riding that Belal Muhammad money train. I mean, like pretty much every fucking fight. The only time I've lost on him was against Jeff Neal, but I think we've won 9 of the last 10 of the last 11, something like that. So I mean, if you've been betting on Belal Muhammad, you've been making money. I mean, those dog odds against Vicente Luque, those dog odds against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, just throughout his career, man, this guy's just been money. And I've been one of his biggest supporters. When people have been out here shitting on him, I've been out here laughing all the way to the bank with these Belal Muhammad gifts of lines that we've been getting. Because yeah, is he gonna blow you away with one punch knockout power? Probably not. Is he going to, put on fight of the year candidates? I mean, most likely not. But is he gonna come out with a smart game plan and and do everything in his power to win the fight and absolutely bite down on this mouthpiece, fight for your money tooth and nail, and come out just prepared and smart and educated and do his homework beforehand? Yes, he is. I mean, this guy is super smart. And for not being the most athletic guy, to make it to the top 5 of this division where you got guys like Kamaru Usman in there, like I'm very inspired by a guy like Belal Muhammad. Someone said something funny. One doesn't simply beat a Muhammad in Abu Dhabi. You want to know something? I really didn't want to get into this because it's going to open up a whole can of worms. But since y'all are here, we love the controversy, and y'all that been listening for a long time, y'all know my sense of humor, and you also know how big of a Belal Muhammad supporter I am, right? Especially when everyone's out here always shitting on him. So when the fight got announced, I made a little joke that and the same kind of joke I've been making for a long time. I said no guy named Muhammad is losing a judge's decision in Abu Dhabi. And yeah, it was just, supposed to be a little tongue in cheek. Haha. And motherfuckers were out here like quote tweeting me saying I'm Islamophobic and this and that. And usually when people are wrong, you shouldn't take offense because you know the truth. But like in this day and age when information spreads so fast and people don't even want to hear the facts and they want to label you something like that, I was truly offended by that. I was like, and it was that one fucking account that has the picture of the hot chick, but it's really a dude behind it, that one weirdo calling me Islamophobic. Like, I've been Belal Muhammad's biggest supporter since how long? Like, you're calling me that? Like, fuck you. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself to call someone like me those words, because The way I've always been is if you're a good person and you mean well, you know, as long as that's all I care about. I don't care about your religion, where you come from, your skin color, your sexual orientation, how you dress, how you look. If you're a good person, that's all that matters to me. And I respect everybody. You know, that's what makes this world great. Everybody having differences of belief. So the fact that someone actually had the gall and the nerve to label me those words when I've been one of Belal Muhammad's biggest supporters. Y'all know my last name's Levy, right? Y'all know Belal Muhammad's Palestinian. Y'all know that we're supposed to hate each other. And I've been one of the guys that wants to break that. You know, I'm one of the guys that wants to advocate for peace. I want our families to be able to eat dinner together and, you know, to prosper together. So I was really pissed off when someone called me that. Like, don't ever say some shit like that to me, you know. So I just had to get that off my chest. But yeah, listen. Now let me give Sean Brady some credit because I think I've talked about Belal enough, you know. And we will talk more about the matchup. But let me give Sean Brady some credit. So I bet Sean Brady his last fight against Chiesa, and I gotta say that, you know, he gave me a bit of a scare in that, you know, late second and all the third round, man. Like the fact that like a guy like Chiesa, you know, it's one thing if Chiesa backpacks you, okay, Chiesa's a backpacker, but for Chiesa to, you know, be getting off on some striking against you, that was sketchy. But let me tell you what I like about Brady. What makes Brady so unique is he's kind of this short, stocky, compact guy for the welterweight division and has got insane top control and is one of these guys that, you know, I've also heard he's got a vice grip with that guillotine with his Darce Anaconda series, his arm triangle. He's got a ridiculous squeeze. And don't sleep on his power, too. He's got some sneaky power as well. So I think that this is an interesting challenge for Belal Muhammad. I believe that this is the first guy that's actually shorter than him that he fights. And I'm not one to you know, to sit here and say that that's a disadvantage for Sean Brady. I actually don't think it is a disadvantage because I think that Sean Brady makes his short, compact, stocky frame work great in the welterweight division. And if Sean Brady gets on top of you, man, like, you know, it's a fat chance you're getting up, man. This guy's top control is ridiculous. And the thing I've always admired about Brady is he knows how to win fights. He's a really smart competitor. He just knows exactly where his strengths lie. He's not going to come out here, you know, throw spinning wheel kicks and fucking fight uncharacteristic. Like Sean Brady just knows exactly what he has to do, comes in very prepared, and is a great competitor. And, you know, a lot of people are referencing, well, this guy beat Craig Jones in a grappling match. And yeah, that's true. I can't debate that. But I think that that's selective facts. The reason I say that is this. So did he beat Craig Jones in a grappling match? Yes, he did. However, let's you know, let's bring up some other facts. Are there punches, kicks, knees, elbows allowed in a grappling match? No, there are not. And to take it a step further, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't leg locks Craig Jones like biggest thing? Like, isn't that what he's known for? There were no leg locks allowed in that match. So basically, Sean Brady laid on top of him for the duration of the match, which, hey, props to you, man. Do what you got to do to win. But I think it's a bit overblown. Had he survived some leg lock attempts against Craig Jones, that's a different story. But here against Belal, I think that Belal is a guy that is very hard to be held down, as you saw in the Damian Maia fight. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for confirming me. He beat Craig Jones in a match with no leg locks. Okay. Like you got to bring that up if you're going to bring up the Craig Jones grappling match, not fight, right? So in that Maia fight, you know, Maia's a guy that has what, somewhere among the most submissions in UFC history, you know, somewhere along there with Charles do Bronx and Royce Gracie and all those legends. And Charles do Bronx is a guy, excuse me, Damian Maia is a guy that took Kamaru Usman's back. Okay, like Damian Maia didn't sniff a takedown against Belal. He sniffed one early and Belal popped right back up. After that, Belal stuffed 20 takedowns. So, like, I know Belal can stuff takedowns. And the times that he has been taken down in the past, he pops right back up. So I think it's going to be actually kind of tough for Brady to just come out here and hold down a guy like Belal Muhammad and let alone out hustle Belal Muhammad. But what I am worried about is this. If you look at the 3 losses that Belal Muhammad has had, Alan Juban, Vicente Luque the first time, and Jeff Neal, they all have a common theme. To beat Belal Muhammad, you must hurt Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad doesn't lose by getting out hustled. I've never seen Belal Muhammad get out hustled in a fight ever. So I'm very curious to see if Sean Brady's going to come out here. I know he's got a sneaky left hook. I know he's got a sneaky big right hand. Doesn't use it as often because he's so dominant with his grappling, but I know that the power is there for Brady. I want to see if Brady's going to come out here and try to take the head off of Belal Muhammad. But with that being said, Belal Muhammad's footwork, he's always changing stances. He's always giving you different looks. Right when you think that, he's popping you with jabs, he's landing big body kicks. And for those that say he doesn't hit or kick hard, ask Vicente Luque and Vicente Luque's coaches and teammates what Vicente thought about that body kick, because Vicente was compromised by that. Ask Stephen. Let's see what happens. Let's just put it like this: Belal took Luque to that meat grinder to the point where the next fight against Jeff Neal kind of, I don't want to ever disrespect someone like Luque, who I hold in high regard, and say that Jeff Neal took out the trash, but Jeff Neal kind of feasted on the carcass a little bit. And I think that when Kevin Holland fights Wonderboy, you saw the beatdown Wonderboy took against Belal. Don't be surprised if Kevin Holland knocks out Wonderboy. But I digress. I think that what makes Belal so special is that he's not the most athletic guy. He's not he probably doesn't have the highest vertical jump. It probably doesn't have the fastest 40-meter dash, but the guy up here mentally, cerebrally, like, this guy is very intelligent. This guy can come up with the right game plans. You think he's going to strike, that's when he takes you down. You think he's going to take you down, that's when he strikes. And he's got insane cardio to go the full 3 or 5 round distance. As we just saw in his last fight, he was just as fresh in that 5th round as he was in that first, and he overcame adversity in that 3rd round. He got caught with a big left hook by Luque. You know how many people Luque has knocked out with that left hook? Luque knocked out Thiago Marreta Santos with a left hook, let alone Belal the first time. To overcome the mental hurdles of a guy that knocked you unconscious in Madison Square Garden, and then to come back and eat that same shot in the 3rd round, and still be able to land your takedown, still be able to land those big body kicks, still be able to win the next 2 rounds and win a clear 4-1 decision. I mean, I tip my cap to a guy like Belal Muhammad. I just love the intelligence. I love the smarts. And more importantly than that, I love the determination. You have to truly compromise Belal Muhammad to beat him. You have to truly hurt him. You have to truly finish him. And let's talk about this. This is another talking point. So if you had to emulate a guy like Sean Brady, who's just this short, stocky, fire hydrant powerhouse with this insane top game, this top control is absolutely ridiculous, right? And like, who am I gonna get? Who am I gonna emulate to get a guy like that? Like, who's just unique in the weight class? Like, there's not another Sean Brady in the welterweight division. So how about this? This dude, Belal Muhammad, goes to Abu Dhabi a month in advance, which is great just to acclimate. But let's take it a step further. He brings in the legendary, the UFC Hall of Famer, Khabib Nurmagomedov, to be his main training partner in preparations for Sean Brady. You got to deal with relentless takedowns. Khabib Nurmagomedov's got you covered. You got to deal with insane top control, suffocating pressure. I think that Khabib Nurmagomedov is going to give you the right look. So if Sean Brady can get past this, God bless him. But I think that no one's exempt from that first L. I mean, if you stick around long enough, I think if even the great Khabib or John Jones stick around long enough, they'd take their first L's too. But I think it's first L time for Sean Brady this weekend. I think it's going to be a close, competitive, tough fight. But I think when both guys are tired and it's time to dig deep, assuming no one's been finished, that's where I think Belal Muhammad shines. And that's where I think he's going to pull away in the 2nd and 3rd round and just show that he's on a different level right now than Sean Brady. I think Brady's got a very bright future, and I'm a fan. Thank you for cashing that Chiesa ticket for me. I'm grateful, but I think that right now is Belal's time, and to take it a step further in a fight that you could argue should be a pick 'em. Belal's plus 125, and it's not often that I fuck up on my lines. Usually I take pride in how I 8 times out of 10 beat the closing line, right? I bet it at plus 116. I mean, I thought there was value at pick 'em odds, so I thought plus 116 was good. He's plus 125 now, so I might add more, but right now I got 2 units on Belal at plus 116. And I think that he shows his spirit. I think he shows his determination. And I think he comes out here and defeats the undefeated Sean Brady. So give me Belal Muhammad for the win. And I think Brady will 100% be back. He'll learn from this and come back better. Now, next up in the middleweight division, I got another bet on this fight. So we got Makhmud Muradov. He's 25-7, representing Uzbekistan, taking on Caio, who was 12-1, representing Brazil. Currently, they got it. Caio minus 200. The comeback on Makhmud Muradov is plus 170. So I actually bet Makhmud Muradov in this fight. I took him 2 units at plus 190. I thought that was a very good line for him. Let me tell you why. So I gotta admit, I respect Caio a lot. You know, I was very grateful he cashed that. I believe it was a dog bet for me against Omar Gadziev, who's also on this card. But I just kind of think that, you know, Gadzi way too small for middleweight, hence him dropping to welterweight on this card. And the next fight against Armen Petrosian, who I think is a fun striker, you know, I just think these guys are a little bit too inexperienced right now, kind of green. Whereas before I talk about Makhmud, let me just say what I like about Borralho. On the feet, kind of has a bit of a karate style, fights with his hands down, but has good distance. And you know, he's relentless with his takedown attempts. And once he takes the back, you know, similar to Aljo, for the most part, not always. Guys often don't get out from those positions, and he's able to choke some people out. And he's just a smart guy, doesn't take any unnecessary risks, does just what he needs to do to win fights. So I respect that about Borralho, and I'm a fan. And I think that he's a very bright prospect for sure. But with Makhmud Muradov, man, I mean, I think that this guy, had the Gerald Meerschaert fight never happened, and if Makhmud was just coming off a big layoff, I think that these odds would be flipped, man. And I think that there's a lot of recency bias just because he had one bad performance, you know, against Gerald Meerschaert, who Gerald Meerschaert's got the most submissions in middleweight history. Gerald Meerschaert from time to time will make really guys look good. I mean, like Alex Pereira wasn't out here knocking out Bruno Silva, but Gerald Meerschaert dropped him and finished him, you know. And from time to time, Gerald Meerschaert will surprise you. He's such a vet. Those veteran tactics, you know, his methods are tried and true. And sometimes he's going to give these guys vet lessons, and that's what happened in that Muradov fight. Whereas here, Caio, less experienced than Gerald Meerschaert. And there's certain things that need to happen. You know, on the feet, I think the volume difference is huge for Makhmud Muradov, not to mention the technique difference, not to mention Borralho fights with his hands down. I think that Borralho is going to be getting jabbed up badly to the face, to the body. And then when Makhmud finds his opening for that big straight right, that's going to be there, not to mention the calf kicks, another big weapon. And how's his takedown defense? Like, prior to the Meerschaert fight, he fought 2 D1 wrestlers in a row, and he stuffed all their takedowns, man. And then the times that he has been taken down, he seems to pop back up. Like, I know the Gerald Meerschaert fight, I don't want to sit here and discredit Meerschaert and call it an off night by Makhmud Muradov. But I just think that Meerschaert and Borralho are 2 different guys. Like, Meerschaert's got how many fights does he have? Like, the guy is just so experienced, paid his dues. Whereas Borralho is just, you know, he's a green prospect with a bright future, 100%. But for him to be minus 200 here, I just think it's a bit of a stretch. So, and there were times in those fights with, you know, Omar Gadziev was just way too small. The size difference was huge. Hence this guy dropping to 70 for his next fight. The Armen Petrosian fight, I mean, how many fights has Armen Petrosian had, man? I mean, Armen Petrosian, this dude's had less than 10 pro fights, man. And he comes from a striking background. I just think that this is a different level of competition here. And also, there was a moment in the Armen Petrosian fight where Caio Borralho took his back, but he was able to slip off. Armen Petrosian gets back up to his feet. The commentators were saying, "Man, Caio's looking, Caio's breathing hard here. Caio's kind of fatiguing a little bit." But unfortunately, Armen Petrosian can't stuff a takedown to save his life. I think that Makhmud Muradov can stuff takedowns, man. I mean, he did it against two D1 wrestlers prior to the Gerald Meerschaert fight. So, yeah, are there certain places I don't want Makhmud Muradov to be in this fight? Absolutely. I don't want Caio Borralho on his back. I don't want Caio Borralho on top of him for extended periods of time. Like, I acknowledge that. But I think that the volume difference is going to be big here on the feet. I think that this is the first time that Borralho is actually going to get hit in a UFC fight. I think this is the first time his takedowns are going to get sprawled on. And don't be surprised to see Borralho start to gas out a bit, shoot from a mile out, and see Makhmud Muradov get back on track. And even if I'm wrong, I had to take a 2-unit shot at plus 190 odds. I just think that this is such recency bias. And again, I think these odds would have been flipped had the Meerschaert fight not happened. So give me Makhmud Muradov to outland this guy, jab him up, stuff the takedowns. If he does get taken down, pop back up and, show him that, hey, like, I still am that prospect that people thought I was prior to the Meerschaert fight. And Borralho will be back. I think Borralho's got a bright future as well. But I had to roll the dice and take this underdog shot on Makhmud Muradov. So let's see if he makes the most of it. Now, next up in the 205-pound division, man, this card's stacked. Everybody do me a favor, smash that like button for me. We got Volkan Oezdemir. He's 18-6, representing Switzerland, taking on Nikita Krylov, who is 28-9, representing Ukraine. I'm not sure if he's still representing Ukraine because I remember he walked out with someone said by flip, do you mean pick 'em? No, by flipped I mean that Muradov would have been like a minus 200 favorite had the Meerschaert fight never happened. That's what I mean by flipped. But I was saying I'm not sure if Krylov represents Ukraine anymore because last few fights it's been showing like a world flag or something. He hasn't been walking out with his flag, so I don't know what the deal is behind that. Someone pardon my ignorance and inform me. But either way, I really, really like how Nikita Krylov's been looking these last few fights. Like, I know there's been some L's along the way, but let's put some context into how these L's went down. So firstly, I know a lot of y'all that heard me on the last time Krylov fought, how big I was on him against Alexander Gustafsson. Like, people were saying that was a dog or pass situation. I was saying favorite or pass. That was my biggest bet of the card. I even went on the UFC Gamblers Perspective show with Kalikas and Gianni and James Lynch. Thanks to them for having me on UFC Fight Pass, and I gave out Nikita Krylov as a bet on that fight against Gustafsson. I was super confident there. And the thing about it was that I bet Nikita Krylov, minus 185, 89, minus 190, something around there. Super confident there because Gustafsson's completely washed up. Whereas, Volkan, I don't think he's washed up, but I also don't think that he's necessarily in his prime. I think he might be slowly exiting his prime, but I still think he's got some, a couple more good years left in him. So what I like about these last few Krylov fights, and let's start with the Ovince St. Preux win. I mean, that was a rematch. He avenged the loss. The first time he got submitted with a Von Flue. Second time goes out there in Atlanta, Georgia, submits him in the second round. The Glover Teixeira fight was a split decision, back and forth fight, like where both guys had their moments. And oftentimes when, you guys remember that run that Glover Teixeira was on, submitting everybody. And in the past, I think Nikita Krylov would have made some bonehead mistakes on the mat and got submitted. And he was able to survive some really bad spots with Glover Teixeira. I thought that was a very good performance. The Johnny Walker fight at the time, man, Johnny Walker was knocking everybody out, and Nikita Krylov didn't fight with his ego. He took the path to least resistance and showed off a pretty nice wrestling game. Was able to out wrestle Johnny Walker for the majority of that fight. The Magomed Ankalaev fight. Now I know he took an L there, but let me say this: like he took round 1 unanimously against Magomed Ankalaev, and like usually like guys don't fight that competitive with Ankalaev. Like usually Ankalaev is clearly a level above all these guys, and like I thought that Krylov fought very competitively. Like I thought that was a good, honest fight between him and Magomed, and it just showed the level that he's on and who he's evolving into. So I thought it was a good performance. And then the next one against Paul Craig, dude, he was fucking smashing Paul Craig. Like, so one can even make the argument that Paul Craig went out at points in that fight. It's just that, you know, you fuck around long enough and Paul Craig's guard, and Paul Craig might submit you. And let me say this is going to be a controversial statement, but listen closely to what I am saying. I thought that Krylov looked better against Craig than Volkan did. Now, I know someone's going to be like, what do you mean? Krylov lost and Volkan won. But like, Krylov was smashing Paul Craig, man. Krylov, like, there were clips where it looked like Paul Craig, like, actually got knocked out and then got woken up with the follow-ups. Like, Nikita Krylov showed big balls, went right into his guard and just started grounding and pounding him away, and eventually got caught. But I don't think that you know, was a sign of, oh, like, firstly, I don't think Volkan Oezdemir is triangling anybody. Let's just get that out the way. But I thought Nikita whooped his ass and then just got caught. That's pretty much all it was. And then the Gustafsson fight, he treated a washed-up Gustafsson exactly how you're supposed to treat a washed-up Gustafsson. Knocked him out in slightly over a minute. Whereas these last few fights from Volkan, man, a lot of people thought he lost the Rakic fight. I'm actually not one of those people. I thought he won that fight. Very good calf kicks there. The Yuri Prohaska fight, man. I mean, dude, like Yuri toyed with him and Yuri sent him into the 5th dimension. The Magomed Ankalaev fight, I didn't think was even close. Magomed was out there dropping him. And then the Paul Craig fight, I got to admit that Volkan followed the right game plan, not following him to the ground. But I can't sit here and say that it was the most inspiring performance that I've seen from Volkan Oezdemir compared to some of his past fights, man. I mean, like back in the day, Volkan was a dude that, like, do you remember when he first came in the UFC and he just slept Misha Serkunov, slept Jimmy Manuwa, got that title shot against Daniel Cormier, did good in the first round, had the fight with Anthony Smith where he like won the first 3 rounds and then got submitted in the last one. A lot of people thought he beat Dominic Reyes, who was super hot at the time. So like Volkan at one point was one of the, you know, hottest prospects in the division. But I think that despite coming off this win, I think that he is fizzling out a bit, whereas I kind of think that Nikita Krylov is showing the best version of himself, and he's really putting all elements of his game together. I kind of view Volkan as like a traditional kickboxer, whereas I view Nikita Krylov, you know, he's got kind of that Kyokushin style. He blends his punches to his kicks, to his takedowns. A lot of submissions on his record too. Maturing a lot. The submission defense, despite the Paul Craig fight, I mean, I don't think too many people are getting out of that. I think it's gotten better too. So I just see Paul Craig. I mean, I just see Nikita Krylov coming out here and winning this fight. Not sure there's much value. I think the line is probably about accurate, but yeah, my pick is going to be Nikita Krylov to win this fight. Now, next up in the featherweight division, this should be a banger right here. We got a matchup between Zubaira Tukhugov. He's 25-1, representing Russia, taking on Lucas Almeida, who is 14-1, representing Brazil. And currently they got it. Zubaira Tukhugov minus 155. The comeback on Lucas Almeida is plus 135. So very, very interesting fight because Lucas Almeida is a Brazilian berserker. I mean, this guy goes balls to the wall. This guy is a finisher through and through. He's going to come out there, try to throw some big concussive blows. Also happens to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I mean, the way he handled his regional opponents was exactly how you're supposed to. Had a great fight with Zell Huber on Contender Series. I know Zell Huber shot the bed in his debut, but I think it was kind of like a Tyler Santos versus Mara Romero Barella type situation where just, I mean, he didn't fight. It's not like he fought his heart out and lost. Like he didn't let it go. So actually look for him in his next fight. If he actually does let it go, I think the kid's talented. And I thought him and Lucas Almeida had a good fight. My thing with Lucas is he goes balls to the wall. And as a fan, you love to see it. And certain guys, if they can't take it, they're going to get knocked out. But with Zuba's always been super fast twitch, has a nasty counter left hook. Also, you know, him being Russian, he can mix in some takedowns too. And he's fought the far better level of competition between the two of them. I mean, we're talking about a guy that, you know, went to a split decision with Hato Moicano, landed 6 takedowns against Lerone Murphy, the only guy in the UFC to not defeat Lerone Murphy. Excuse me, the only guy in the UFC to not lose to Lerone Murphy. Let me correct myself. Knocked out Kevin Aguilar in the first round. The Hakeem Dawodu fight was a split decision. The Ricardo Ramos fight, man, I think Ricardo Ramos is a young phenom, and like Ricardo Ramos, like, I mean, Zuba was looking explosive in that fight. Zuba's hands were looking on a different level, man, and that was also the highest output that Zuba's had in any of his UFC fights. So I thought it was a big step in the right direction. The criticism, and the reason I say it was a big step in the right direction is because a lot of times Zuba's output has waned as fights progress. So the fact that, and he did lose the third round in that fight, but the fact that he finally got his strike count up a little bit more, I think it was a big step in the right direction. And the way these two match up is Lucas Almeida, you know, assuming he fights characteristically, he's going to go right after Zuba Tukhugov. And could he clip him? Possibly. But on the flip side, that's going to leave those openings for Zuba to land that nasty, sharp counter left hook, to change levels and mixing those entries to those takedowns. So, but here's one thing. I could definitely see Zuba dropping Lucas Almeida, possibly getting a knockout, and I can also see Zuba taking down Lucas Almeida. But if Zuba expends a lot of energy and Lucas Almeida is still somewhat fresh in that third round, that's where things could get kind of interesting. That's where maybe Lucas Almeida can kind of put it on him a little bit down the stretch of the fight. So that's what I'm very intrigued to see what happens. But I think that despite the output being on the lower side for Zuba, I just think that fast twitch, that sharp left hook, the ability to mix in those takedowns, his experience fighting much higher level competition should carry him through here. So I'm going to go with Zubaira Tukhugov to, I'm going to say either knockout or decision. I don't think he submits Lucas Almeida, but I'm going to say knockout or decision. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between the newcomer Yamato Nishikawa. Yamato is a dope-ass name, by the way. He's 21, 3-6, representing Japan, taking on Magomed Mustafaev, who's 14-4, representing Russia. Currently, they got it. I don't see it in DraftKings Sportsbook, but in other books, they got it minus 550. Magomed Mustafaev, the comeback on Yamato, is plus 400. So conventional wisdom says that Magomed Mustafaev should come out here and possibly blow this kid out the water. I mean, like, the level of competition difference is huge. I mean, we're talking about a guy in Mustafaev who went to a split decision with Brad Riddell, who's a top 15 guy, knocked out Rafael Fiziev, who's a top, 15, top 10 guy, I believe. It's just much more experience at the UFC level. But this kid, Yamato, he's been super active. He's allegedly 19 years old. Sometimes those ages don't tell the whole story. He's allegedly 19 years old. He's got a big record. He's fought a lot more opponents, but he's fought much lesser quality opponents, like substantially lesser quality opponents. The level of competition has been extremely suspect. You could arguably call it a padded record. It's just, I don't know what to expect, because like I haven't seen his last few fights, and a kid that young has got to be making improvements every single time. But the fights I was able to watch on Yamato are kind of things that probably won't fly at the UFC level, rolling for Imanari's and, flopping to his back and doing things like that. I just don't see it going well. But at the same time, with him only allegedly being 19 years old, and the last fight I saw of him was a few fights back, maybe he's drastically changed. Maybe he's drastically improved. Maybe he is ready. But based on what I've seen right now and the odds reflecting that, I do have to go Magomed Mustafaev. It's just tough because, he barely fights. But when he does fight, he tends to look good, The guy, he's got other things going on, you know what I'm saying? But super explosive guy, Magomed Mustafaev. Nasty kicks, the spins, the big punches. And from time to time, he'll mix in a takedown as well. So I'd just be curious to see, with this guy, Yamato, the kinds of opponents he's been fighting. Like, even the guys he's fought with good records, they're all like 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? So, and just winning by arm bars, going for Imanari rules. If he can do it, props to him. I'm just not going to predict him to do it. So I'm going to go with Magomed Mustafaev to win this fight. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Abubakar Nurmagomedov, he's 16-3, taking on Gadzi or Margadziev, who's 13-1. So we got a little Russia on Russia crime here. Currently, they got it. Abubakar minus 175. The comeback on Gadzi is plus 150. Firstly, let me say that I'm happy to see Gadzi drop to 170 because, hey, y'all, leave me some more comments and smash that like button for me. And if you're not subscribed, please do me a big favor and subscribe. But yeah, I was really glad to see Omar Gadziev drop to 170 because, man, like the size difference between him and Borralho in that last fight was truly something. It looked like I was thinking the kid could drop to 55 when I saw that fight, man. And another thing I gotta say, I'm not convinced this dude Gadzi is no 6'1". He looked 5'10" to me. The thing with Abubakar, despite the fact that he never fights, he's got the meat and potatoes Russian style, man. And, that last fight, he fought against my brother, Jared Gooden. Shout out to Jared, got back on track this weekend, had a really tough fight against a veteran and got the second round TKO, He took it, he was taking some shots, but the other guy refused to continue. So that's a TKO win. So props to Jared. I think a couple more wins and he's back in there. And Abubakar threw a lot of surprises at Jared, coming out there using a jab heavy game plan. That was something that we didn't expect. We expected a lot more takedown attempts, and all the takedown attempts did get stuffed until the final round. But I just think that it's kind of your classic Russian coast on the Abubakar side, whereas with Omar Gadziev, a little bit more unorthodox. You saw, didn't he he got that knee bar on Contender Series, and also he doesn't train in Russia. I'm pretty damn sure that this guy's out here training in France, so kind of getting some different looks out there. And man, some of his regional fights are kind of suspect. You want to fight via refusal to fight. So I'm just not too sold on Omar Gadziev. Maybe some opportunistic submissions are past the victory, but I think that although Abubakar isn't going to blow you away with any flash or, anything just too special, he's just got his meat and potatoes fundamentally sound. And I think that should be enough to come out here and win a decision. So give me Abubakar for the win. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a match between Armen Petrosyan. He's 6-2, taking on AJ Dobson, who is 6-1. And currently, at DraftKings Sportsbook, they got it. Armen Petrosyan minus 205. The comeback on AJ Dobson is plus 175. So what makes this fight interesting is that both guys are relatively inexperienced for UFC standards. Armen Petrosyan, obviously, he's got that kickboxing background, but you know what? He's been in there with some serious competition in the UFC. Like, for his first two fights, went in there with RoboCop, actually won the fight, like, controversial or not. He still went out there and landed 127 significant strikes against RoboCop and survived some pretty bad spots as well. So I really respect that on the Petrosyan side. And then with AJ Dobson, he's kind of one of these guys that, he just had a super easy regional scene experience where didn't fight anybody, ran through all these guys in basically under a minute. The Contender Series fight was the first time he fought anybody relatively decent, and that relatively decent guy was 6-0, which is, very inexperienced as well. Another first round finish. First time he went out the first round, he lost the fight to Jacob Malkoun, but no shame in losing to Jacob Malkoun. You all know the kind of pace that guy pushes, and I can tell you right now that, just looking at the stats, let me pull up the stats real quick. So Jacob Malkoun in that AJ Dobson fight, my boy Jacob Malkoun goes out there and attempts 16 takedowns, goes 6 for 16. I can just already tell you Armen Petrosyan's not going to do that, so it's a completely different dynamic. But that being said, that doesn't mean that AJ Dobson's not going to still, blow his load early and then have nothing left. But in saying that, Armen Petrosyan has been stopped in the first round before. And usually his first rounds, he's a very slow starter. Even in the fights that he hasn't been stopped in the first round, he's been put in compromising situations. So he's vulnerable early on in fights. And that's where I think a guy like AJ Dobson could capitalize. So if you're taking the shot on AJ Dobson, like, I understand, like, AJ Dobson's known for all those first round finishes. His opponent's been finished in the first round before, and his opponent is a very slow starter. So AJ Dobson's live early on with potentially knocking him out or landing some takedowns or something like that. But the longer this fight goes, if Armen Petrosyan's not badly compromised and he can start getting into his rhythm, that's where I think he's going to pick apart AJ Dobson, pull away down the stretch, and go out there and win this fight. So I don't see any value on the odds on Armen Petrosyan because I think he's going to have to overcome some serious shit in that first round, and I'm not convinced he survives it. But if he does, I think he wins this fight. I'm just unwilling to lay that price on him. So, yeah, it's a pass for me, but I'll pick Armen Petrosyan. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Muhammad Makhachev, he's 7-0, taking on Malcolm Gordon, who is 14-5. Currently, they got a Muhammad Makhachev minus 730. The comeback on Malcolm Gordon is plus 530. So, yeah, this fight's a mismatch, and I'm very, very impressed with Muhammad Makhachev. He had to prove a lot to me because people always talked about his amateur, career and the extensive amateur record he had. And I always kind of viewed it like that Allen Iverson quote, like talking about practice. Like, I know we ain't talking about practice, right? Like, let's see what's up at the pro level. And man, at the pro level, he ran through a couple cans, but when he got to the UFC, like, the way he treated Cody Durden, like, that was serious. But okay, but you can be like, yeah, but that was under a minute. What happens if a fight gets extended? Well, his very next fight against the former LFA champ, like, this dude goes out there and sets the record for not only most takedowns attempted in flyweight history, but most takedowns landed in flyweight history. He went 12 for 26. So what that shows me is this kid is not only able to be a first round finisher, but he's also got that style I love where he can just attempt takedown after takedown after takedown. And with Malcolm Gordon, look, I'm glad that he somewhat got his confidence back those last two fights. I think he definitely needed them, but I still think that his chin is extremely questionable. I think his heart is in question as well. I think that in that Figueiredo fight, Figueiredo had full mount. Instead of just staying in full mount, Figueiredo decides to drop back for a leg lock, give up position, and lose the fight. So those are the kind of mistakes that a guy like Muhammad Makhachev's not going to be making. And and then the other win, the kid got injured like right away. So it's cool that Malcolm Gordon, a longtime vet, got some wins under his belt. Happy for him, but that all ends here. I think that Muhammad Makhachev is going to come out here, and I think he's going to brutally knock him out. I think people forgot about the chin of Malcolm Gordon. His chin is probably one of the worst chins on the roster, and yeah, I'm not any higher on him than I was back when I was talking all the shit I was a few fights back. So I think Muhammad, by whatever he wants, if you want to, stamp his passport, give him some sky miles, some frequent flyer miles, and take him to Suplex City, that's fine too. If you want to test your striking, flying knees, big punches, knock him out, that's fine too. You want to test you want to go out there and submit a jiu-jitsu black belt, I'm not against it. So I think Muhammad Makhachev shines in this fight and continues his impressive UFC run. Now, last but not least, I got a bet on this fight. So this is my fourth and final bet for UFC 280. In the bantamweight division, we got Lena Landsberg. She's 10-6, taking on Karol Hossa, who is 15-4. Currently, they got it. Karol Hossa minus 260. The comeback on Lena Landsberg is plus 220. So I did my job. I mean, I took Karol Hossa at minus 225. Now she's minus 260. So I'm very happy about that. And Karol Hossa, you guys know the angles that I love to play, whether it be the relentless wrestlers, whether it be, fading someone on their way out, which this could fall into that category, but this falls into another category I love, which is just that huge output difference. I love when you can double, triple up your opponent on strikes, like Ione Barcelos did to Trevin Jones the other day. I just love that kind of shit. And when you're talking about the kind of numbers that Karol Hossa's put up, I mean, 3 separate occasions she's landed 120 significant strikes or more, 171 significant strikes against Procopio, plus a knockdown, 120 significant strikes against Melo. Now, against Jocelyn Edwards, she didn't land 100 significant strikes, but you know what she did do? She went 4 for 6 on takedowns. So she's showing a well-rounded game. Against Betch Correia, 125 significant strikes. Now, I get it. She lost to Sarah McMahon, and I was wrong about that fight. I picked her there. But I got to give her credit, man. Like, she survived some really bad spots. We know McMahon's a silver medalist Olympic wrestler. And in that third round, Karol Hossa took down the Olympic wrestler twice. It's only counted as once, but I saw 2 takedowns there. And I just think that the variety of the strikes is going to be a big thing here. The way she mixes her punches to her kicks, to her knees, to the clinch, the entries to the takedowns. I think she's so much more well-rounded. Whereas Lena Landsberg, I respect her. She's a true vet of the game. I just think that she's simply, getting up there in age. My girl, Karol Hossa, is only 27, whereas Lena Landsberg is 40, so 12 to 13 year age gap, depending on when they're about to turn their next, when they're about to have their next birthdays. And, the one big concern with Lena Landsberg, I'm not worried about the output. The most strikes she's ever landed in a UFC fight, actually more impressive than I thought. One time she landed 80 strikes against Lucy Pudilova. But besides that, I mean, she averages, under 3 strikes landed per minute per fight. And when you're dealing with Karol Hossa, she lands close to 7 strikes landed per minute per fight. The one thing you got to worry about with Lena Landsberg is the same thing you've always had to worry about. Her nickname, the Elbow Queen. She's got some pretty damn good elbows, especially from the clinch or her step through elbows. Like, and she's got decent Muay Thai too. I don't think that she's going to be anywhere near as fast or dynamic as Karol Hossa at this point. It's just, got to watch out for those elbows, but that's it. There's no takedown threat here. There's no volume threat here. There's no big power threat here either. It's just those goddamn elbows, and if we're wary of that, I think we got an answer for that too. I think we got big knees in the clinch as well. And even like people were talking about that fight that Lena Landsberg had with Pannie Kianzad, how it was closer than they thought. It's like, but was it really closer than they thought? The only reason that it was 29-28, not 30-27, is because Lena Landsberg landed one big elbow that dropped Pannie Kianzad in that fight. Aside from that, she lost every other minute of that fight. Not to mention, Pannie Kianzad is more known for just her boxing for MMA, whereas Karol Hossa has the complete Muay Thai package. Not to mention, she can mix in takedowns too. So I bet Karol Hossa at minus 225 to win 1 unit, and that's a first bet of the card. So yeah. Wow. So we got through the card. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this very special edition of Half the Battle. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Before I get out of here, let's talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So besides the main event, I think the fight to watch has got to be Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, man. I mean, I think that some of us consider Petr Yan to be the uncrowned champ. Sean O'Malley, I mean, this guy has been climbing his way through the ranks. A lot of people have been criticizing the level of opposition that he's been fighting. Well, I know you ain't criticizing the level of opposition he's fighting here, because Petr Yan is number 2 in the world, and it's just an intriguing matchup stylistically. 2 strikers, Sean O'Malley with that kind of long range. He wants to stay pretty, wants to keep it on the outside, and Petr Yan wants to get right in your face, make it dirty, is able to win rounds with big power, knockdowns, everything. So Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley is my fight to watch. And my fighter to watch is Belal Muhammad, man. I mean, listen, a lot of people have been criticizing Belal Muhammad, saying he's boring, saying he's this, saying he's that. I'm guessing if you're saying those things that you haven't been riding the money train. What has he won, like 11 of his last 13 fights or something like that? Like you've been laughing all the way to the bank if you've been cashing, if you've been betting Belal Muhammad. I mean, we're talking about dog odds against Luque, dog odds against Wonderboy, reasonable prices against some of these other guys. So, and dog odds once again here. And he's got a very tough opponent against, a very tough and just a unique opponent, Sean Brady. The first time that Belal fights someone that's shorter than him, the first time that's really just a top control guy with a nasty squeeze and power on his feet and riding the confidence of being an undefeated fighter, doesn't know what it means to lose. Like, this is a big test for Belal. And if he passes it, he's in the conversation. So for that reason, Belal Muhammad is my fighter to watch. Well, guys, thank you so much for all your support. I truly, truly appreciate it. Please help out the channel by hitting the like button, the subscribe button. Leave me a comment on the video afterwards. Share it, retweet it. All those little things you guys do help me out tremendously. I don't have any big websites pushing me. It's just me and y'all and our love for the game. So it means the world to me that you guys are here with me. So thank you all very, very much. Truly, truly appreciate it. And, again, to the fans, message me anytime. I'm always down to talk to anybody that supports me. If you've been sending me tweets and I don't follow you, for some reason it doesn't show me the tweets from people I don't follow, but my DMs are open, so y'all can message me anytime. I'm always down to talk to my supporters. So thank you all again for everything. Truly, sincerely appreciate it. And man, best of luck with the bets. Again, to recap, I took Islam, I took Muradov, I took Belal, I took Carl Hosa, all straight. You can check it on my Bet MMA tips. So again, thank you all so much for all your support. Sincerely, sincerely appreciate it. I'll be back next week for the Calvin Kattar versus Arnold Allen fight, which I have a strong opinion on. Maybe even do a little after the battle, after this card, if it's good. So, which I know it will be. So stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. Subscribe to Half the Battle everywhere podcasts are found. Thank you all again. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.